So recording has started. So our meeting for tonight is two people will be presenting. The first is the founder of a company called AI Apprentice. His name is Ethan, and he is a neuroscientist by training, but he got his PhD at the University of Southern California, and then he worked at Qualcomm Research on a combination of neuromorphic computing and software projects. He then worked as a software engineer at a social media company, honing his full stack software skills. Observing his wife, who's a registered architect and an AIA member, having practiced in China and then in the US for 15 years, he watched her struggle over the years and learned that every firm she worked at was facing similar challenges, and he became fascinated by the problem. So he decided to dedicate his time and talent to help his wife and the AECO industry, believing that he could bring positive change to the profession. So he founded AI Apprentice in 2019, developing technology to fight the loss of institutional knowledge and use this knowledge to standardize and automate construction documentation. Since then, Ethan has worked with a wide range of architecture firms, from a one-man practice to a U.S. top firms. And speaking of U.S. top firms, the second presenter is Luke Deckinga. Did I pronounce that right?
You did.
All right. And he works with Perkins & Will, who was one of Ethan's first clients, right? And so he is the digital practice manager for computational design at Perkins & Will. And he brings a programmer's rigor and a designer's creativity to every area of their diverse practice, using technology to give artists new brushes to paint with, not numbers to paint by. Trained as an architect, but working in a wide range of scales and disciplines, from robotic fabrication to parametric cities, he can be found at the intersection of technology and creativity, often at odd hours. And with his cat.
And with my cat. That wasn't on the recording, though. They have no idea what we're talking about.
Oh, that's true. Maybe she'll come back for a guest appearance. So with that, I will let you guys get started.
Thank you. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you for hosting this, organizing this. And I particularly like the way how you organize this gathering to be almost like the center of the community, and you have, pass around the information, the hiring information around. So everyone comes here feels like, this is somewhere they want to come back again and again. And thanks for doing that. And we are honored together today. I'm honored today to be here to talk to you about this topic about institutional knowledge for the AEC industry. As Bethany has introduced us with, I started this company trying to build tools to help the profession to fight the loss of institutional knowledge. And by taking that data out of your past projects. And we're also going to show it is possible to use that data to get the profession to a more standardized and more automated drawing set, documentation, let's say. So Luke, do you need to say something before we get started?
No, I mean, I guess just to sort of explain why I'm here is probably a good idea. Everything that you're going to see, it's all Ethan's work. Basically, we've been sort of an industry partner with him, sort of alpha and beta testing things as he's developing them, giving him feedback, saying this is how we would use it. Perkins & Will, for those of you that don't know, we're a, fairly large multi-office international firm. So we have a lot of different people practicing in a lot of different ways in a lot of different locations. And so, I don't know exactly where everyone on the call works or anybody watching the video works, but, I feel like the stuff that he's developing, we're testing it at a very large scale, but it also is very applicable to, very, very small scale. So my role has mainly been to, just sort of go along for the ride, provide more in-depth, sort of architect's perspective, and give him, how we would use this inside of our practice, and, taking the tools that he develops and trying to apply them to our actual practice. So yeah, hopefully I'm giving good feedback, but all of the work is his.
You have been modest. Look, I'm forever grateful for the opportunity to work with a large amount of architects at your firm, and for the feedback and actually the hours we've been spending together, to debug this. So let me share my screen. Am I seeing my screen here?
We see colorful mountains.
Oh, where was my screen there? Okay, here, let me see. This one. No, this one. I think it's this one.
There we go.
Oh, you see it? No. Okay, cool. Also, very nervous where they come. Okay, so I've been said quite a bit about the title here, so I'm going to skip this one. As I said, I get into developer tools for architects. I use a particular architects because I married an architect. And as working on this IEC challenges, I'm always fascinated, amazed by the similarities between the practices of software development, which I have been working with the architectural design process. So here I would like to share with you our observation. So on the right-hand side of the screen, it's architectural design practice, where architects and engineers make a set of drawings or documents, construction documents, that's been sent to a general contractor, an undergoing process called a build. And then general contractor will read this set of drawings and come up with instructions and send it to perhaps the subs. And in the end, orchestrated build process is taken and then end up with a building. And on the left-hand side of screen, it's a very similar process happening in software development, where developers, software engineers maybe, they write those text files. They call it source code. You probably already know. And then they send the source code to a compiler. A similar process called a build, not the same word used on both sides. And those compiler will read the text that the software engineer writes, and then turn them into the machine instruction and write it into an application. So this is very simplified view of both sides of processes. But you can, from this similarity, you can sort of know that there must be similar challenges involved. For example, if you have buggy designs in your set of construction drawings, GC is going to pause the build and send back RFI, or even change orders. And those are very expensive to deal with, even for RFIs, right? $1,000 for each piece to answer and review. And I heard it's close to 1 million to set back for a project for each one of them. Change order is unpriced even. You don't know how much money is going to be wasted. Similarly, when the software compiler is building an application, if there is bug in the source code, it's going to stop the build and send back with error messages and demanding the developer to fix the message before it can continue. And that sort of says how similar the two processes are. And also the quality-wise, if you have inferior design that may even pass the build process, it may resolve to an inferior building. Similarly, inferior source code, inferior developed software, you're going to get optimized application to run. And there are also anecdotal evidence. For example, approaching the deadline of a project, architecture firms tend to add architects or designers into a project. That doesn't tend to work so well. Similar stories on software development side. If you add a software engineer to a team before deadline, it doesn't let them deliver 1 day early. Perhaps the reason being that the two kinds of work are very similar. For example, the construction drawings or documents are meant to be read much more times than being drawn or modified. Similarly, source code are meant to be read much more times than written. You must know the famous story of a UK engineer diagnosing what's wrong underneath the shell of a machine. He walked around for a long time and draw a line on the shell, and then people cut it out, and that's where the problem is. What I'm trying to say here is, for architecture design and software design, every day you are drawing that line, you are drawing many times that line. First, you diagnose where the problem is, and then sort of you look around, understand everything surrounding it, and make that change. All of those makes these two kinds of work to have similar traits. And since recent year, we've been hearing software profession has been gaining in their productivity, and while construction seems to be stagnating, perhaps it would be beneficial to look at what software developers, software professionals come up with to help them cope with their problem, and see if any idea there could be applied to our AEC industry, architecture design, for example. So for anyone who tries to learn how to develop software or take first stab at it, the first thing that he's going to be taught about is this principle called DRY. Don't repeat yourself. It's about a single source of truth. It's about separation of concerns, also succinctness in the product set of code. On the AEC side, the Bing arguably is one of such attempts where people say now you build a model where it's now the single source of truth. Everything you deliver gets out of it. But also wouldn't the okay, where was, okay, next slide. So the precise text of the DRY principle says, like here. So it basically says every piece of knowledge must have a single representation in a system. So for a system, for software, it's probably one application, but for our architects or engineers, probably it's one project or one set of construction drawings. Basically, this principle would say every piece of information you want to have it one representation, single ones. Does this sound familiar to you as architects or designers or engineers? Like in your construction document set, don't you want to annotate one thing at one place for only one, for only once, right? That applies to your dimension, applies to your tagging. At least that's the goal we are advertising that you need to want to strive to reach, right? And also perhaps secretly, a software engineer tries to minimize the amount of code we are responsible for. And perhaps as a designers, architects, engineers, you want to minimize the number of sheets you are responsible for, right? And actually, over the years, a number I see is today's architects delivers 9 times as many drawings as you used to be doing like 50 years ago. So a lot of work has been there. But if the DRY principle is being sticked upon, perhaps it would be help us in delivering your design. And furthermore, those software people even call themselves architects. So here, on the left-hand side of the screen, it's a typical what they call as software architecture, and the people doesn't call themselves architect. And here I'm citing the famous quote from Mies van der Rohe that if you read it, perhaps you would understand why they call themselves architect. So Mies says, architecture starts when you carefully putting 2 bricks together. So here, these people, these software architects, they put 2 blocks together, and then for a software engineer to actually implement in the detail, that means the arrows inside this between the 2 blocks. He needs to go to write his source code to either implement or document how those two blocks interact together, which is not unlike how an architect is documenting here, in this case, a parapet go together. How does a roof and a parapet wall goes together, and perhaps some other elements inside this this detailed drawing. So let's say I am a software engineer tasked with implementing the interaction between the service agent block and the service block. And then I'm supposed to write code actually documenting those connections. So what I'm going to do first may not be directly start writing, whatever draw stuff, but I would first look at how people have handled this problem before. Is it solved the problem in some other projects? How do they solve them? I would like to see. So what I would first do is to go to this place called GitHub. Today, it becomes probably a knowledge repository of software projects. And I'm going to put in the search box, I'm going to put in a word that I know is going to be involved in the solution, and then hit a search. And GitHub is going to give me a lot of search results. Mostly it will tell me this two-person inside this project at this location, and note, around those lines, a few of the source code that involves that ingredient. And as a software engineer, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read how do people do this before, probably in different projects, right? And then I may go to my editor, write my own stuff after I understand what people have done before. Or if I'm more risky taking, I may copy some of those code and paste it on my place. But of course, I need to adapt it so that it works well with the rest of the code of surrounding it. So the question becomes, do we have such a thing in AEC where you can name some ingredients in your solution, and that thing lead us to a solution that people have worked out before? For example, like this set of detail, that is a solution that people have put in time to worked out every detail, and it is past the permit process, and it's actually been built. Do we have such a thing? If we don't, shall we have such a thing? Okay, so I know as a more experienced people in this profession, as the audience sitting here, you probably have a folder somewhere sitting with the projects that you have done before, right? And you remember you have done it. So when you have facing this challenge, then you go in there and find the stuff. But what if it's a challenge that you haven't dealt with before? It's a new type of project. It's a new type of detail. And also think about the young professionals who just graduated and joined this profession, right? They don't have that folder of things to consult. How do they get that knowledge? Today we just tell them go read the particular projects, and then this person is then responsible to flip through that thick pile of drawings that may not be very easily accessible, especially today when everyone's working at home. That's probably also the profession, right? Construction profession tend to have problems to attract young people entering this profession, and maybe at least from my angle of view in software engineering, the knowledge like this is more readily accessible to the young professional just entering the profession, and perhaps construction could learn from that, making our previous solution readily accessible. So when people need to learn, it's not hard for them to reach at least some samples for them to read through and understand how problem has been solved before. Okay, so so where has AEC been, and where can we go next? Luke Deckinger from Perkins and Will is going to talk to you about what we have been working on in the past year. So Luke, do you want to share your screen, or you want to use this?
Let's just keep going with yours. I think we only have a few slides to flip through. So essentially the stuff that we're going to show you, there's a couple of different themes surrounding it. The first one that we're going to talk about is artifact. It's the one honestly that I've been involved with more. And it is exactly what Ethan was just talking about, being able to access, harvest, reuse, categorize, and find your old details from past projects and share them with other people. And then the second thing that we're going to talk about is automation of construction documents. So, we realized as we were going through and creating Artifact that we're harvesting a lot of information from the Revit models, and we figured out a lot of other things that we could potentially do with them, and layered those on top of some projects that Ethan was already working on in terms of doing some automation work. So that's sort of the way that the rest of the presentation is laid out. It's sort of those two halves, one of them dealing with sort of knowledge capture and reuse, and the other one with automation. So, in a sense, this, capturing details, reusing them, it's the way that our profession has always operated. The idea going back to Vitruvius of having books of details in your surroundings that you're going to draw inspiration from, take them and use on your new project. It's the way that we operate. I'm staring at my bookshelf right now. I have several different graphic standards. I look at them. That's how I understand how things are put together. As Ethan was saying, we have past projects that we have worked on in our studios, in our past work, that we remember that we apply to new things. Like I said, I work for Perkins & Will, and we're a very large firm. I've been there for, I think, almost 8 years, probably about 7.5 years now. And I feel like this idea of knowledge capture and knowledge transfer is a major part of the job. Perkins & Will exists even though people come and people go every year. I don't even know across our however many offices we have, how many people come and go, but the work of the firm exists as the effort of all of those people. If they're here for a month, if they're here for a year, if they're here for 10 years. And so to be able to transfer the ideas, the firm ethos, the sort of culture of the firm, which exists in the projects that we do, to the next generation of people that come in, and to be able to learn from those things and not have to solve problems that we've solved before, to be able to, like Ethan was saying, pick up where we left off, reuse the stuff that we have, look at the stuff that we have around us, and look at how other people, other professionals who have tried to solve these types of problems before have done it, and use those ideas and apply them to the next project. So we're going to be talking about a lot of like fancy technology and BIM data and databases and all of those sorts of things. But essentially what we're talking about is capturing knowledge and effort and being able to reuse it. Some of the data that we have, it seems like you guys are a fairly technically adept audience. The way that the plugin is operating is as a plugin into Revit. Now, I'm sure Ethan will talk about, we have a Forge accessibility, which he's been working really hard on. But inside of our Revit models, regardless of where they're stored, we have drawings, we have objects, we have tags, we have views, and all of that exists inside of an RVT file that we have access to. What the harvester does is it takes an individual view, looks at everything which exists inside of that view, including all of the text inside of the text notes, all of the families which are being shown inside of that, all of the project information which is associated with the project. It's taking that, harvesting all of that, and throwing it up to a database so that you can search through it and find things and download all of that stuff. So this is the backbone of everything. It looks through a Revit document and it categorizes all the views with all of the notes that you've attached to it. It's displayed in a Google-like interface. There's really no other way to explain it. You just go to a website. It's called Artifact. You type in search. I think this is a screenshot of our Perkins & Will's internal, Artifact deployment. We have, I think, 20,000 some drawings. Yeah, 20,000 drawings in there right now. And you just go there, type something in, hit search, and it gives you a list of results that you can then filter through. All of the information that we were talking about before that it captures inside of the view, the view scale, the location, the sheet that it's on. I forget what else, what all of the other filters are. I'm sure, I think we're going to be able to go and look at it a little bit more in depth, but all of that information is available to you as a way to filter down to get to the views that you want. So again, we have a bunch of projects in our firm that we've done. The more that we get in there, we're going to have a bunch of details, and being able to filter down to exactly what we want is going to be really important. The search function works really well. The more detail you add, the better your search results are going to be, and the more it's going to narrow down. So if you type in door, obviously most projects have doors. I can't think of one that wouldn't have a door, but maybe someone will prove me wrong. But project without a door. So yeah, you type in door, you're going to get all of the projects. But let's say you have a brick project, so you type in brick door, and that's going to give you more specific details for, you know, how to frame out the wall, what those sections look like, a little bit more specific to your project. So taking that data and using it to filter down to make your searching more efficient is what we've been able to do. We, as if I did anything, what he was able to do.
Note we are giving when we are showing the solutions that surfaced, we are also telling you where that solution was made in this particular project, in that particular sheet, and detail number 6, for example. In the search here, particularly, I highlight a few that I think would give you results that landing you really on the solution or knowledge. Because if you search CMU and door, it's really a solution to how to put the interface between door and CMU walls. It's not one element, but how you put the 2 elements together. And that's what architecture has been defined to be. And yes, 2 or more elements, for example, as a typical parapet detail I was being referring to earlier.
Yeah, so this is a copy of our notes that we were sort of going through, you know, in the, you know, comparing old versus new ways of working. You know, you don't have artifact and you do have artifact. How would you go about, you know, you're drawing a brick parapet detail, how would you come to understand what that looks like and find an old project if you have one? You know, we have teams, we're meeting in teams right now. We have a bunch of different teams over our firm. We would go on the various channels and say, hey, does anybody, you know a project that has this? Oh, yes. You know, we find it. Is there a PDF on the server somewhere? Is it in a version of Revit? Do I still have that version installed? Is it up on BIM 360? Am I added to that project? So there's all this, like, you know, coordination stuff of like, I want to look at these drawings and I need to jump through these 5 hurdles in order to get access to it, because, you know, I mean, that's just the way that things work, you know, the way that we've collected information before. So, you know, we have the information, but, you know, whereas before we might have a, you know, when we printed everything out, we would have a drawer that everything was printed in, and we would go over and walk over to that drawer, especially now, you know, sort of late pandemic, I guess, is where we are now. You know, people are still at home. We don't have access to those drawers. You know, maybe you still have access to servers that you can, you know, get to from home. But, you know, there's sort of these barriers to getting to things. And now, you know, with Artifact, because it's all web-based, we just harvest things, it goes up to a website, and you access everything through the website, and you don't have to worry about having Revit installed or finding the folder or any of that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's, again, it's not new thinking in terms of like, what do I want? I want to look at old drawings to figure out how to make my new drawing. It's really just the way that we're collecting, searching through it, finding it, and delivering it, which is changing.
And in the beginning, actually, first version of Artifact, you really just look at the results. We didn't provide any way for you to reuse. I mean, you basically go to a project and redraw it. That's sort of answers a lot of worry about, we heard about reuse. And of course, we are also building the capability for people to download a small, very small RBT file containing particularly that drafting view detail. Because after people finding what they want, they sort of have a thirst to want to get hand on particularly that solution. So look, we have time to demo. Do you want to live demo it, or want to play this video? We had about a very short video.
I mean, you can,
your screen too.
Yeah, maybe start the video. Let me pull up a version of it, and maybe we can do a live demo after you play that. But yeah, maybe start that one off.
So this is the harvesting process. And here are the popular searching terms you can set up. And this is a searching for flashing. And we also search for all the keynotes if you do your annotation with keynotes. And you can download a detail in a PDF format. and maybe mark it up and send to somebody. It's probably scaled. You can put it in your Bluebeam, for example. And you can copy a link and put that link into your team chat if you want to refer to it and ask somebody something for comments, for example.
Oh, I think we're seeing your teams.
Oh, my teams?
Oh, nope, sorry. I was in front. My bad.
Okay, and you can add new collection. So this is, you can make collections like Spotify lists that contains the details you like. And as you're searching through solutions, you can add a solution into particular lists. And you can narrow down your search. Here is a flashing equipment curve. And if it's from Revit, we show you all the 2D families contained in that detail solution. Here I'm adding it to a flashing list. And if I click on the sheet name, you are going to go to all of the detail view on that sheet and the sheet itself.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we worked out doing the, doing sort of the user testing. You're looking for a detail, you put in some search terms, someone, again, thinking about the way that the person in the past organized the set. When you organize a set, you put all similar details on the same sheet. So if you find one detail, the idea that you're going to find, the surrounding details on the sheet, we wanted to provide a one-click way of saying, okay, I like this detail, show me the surrounding ones.
And we do have the capability to let people download a small RVT containing only this drafting view.
Yeah, that was another thing that we added later on. Again, sort of developing features as we went. Initially, only having like a JPEG or a PDF to be able to download and sort of make a cartoon set, but being able to have the Revit lines and the families and the fill patterns and all of those sorts of things as a starting place. So if you only have to change a couple of lines, it's really easy just to change a couple of lines and finish the drafting view. Sorry, I know I'm talking too long, and we're sort of out of time with the video. I have a live demo if you guys want to switch to that at any point.
Okay. So
yeah.
You can share your screen.
Okay.
Stop this.
As far as questions, do you want us to stop you or save them till the end?
I think you can bring them in if you want. I feel like we have a little bit more to show. We'll have a little bit of a demo time here. So if you have questions about the demo, we can do it now. I think we'll probably also have time at the end to come back to this. So yeah, we'll do a demo for a few minutes and then go back and talk about the other half of the presentation, the sort of construction document automation stuff that Ethan's been working on.
So we'll hold questions till the end then.
Okay. Am I at the right location? I'm only seeing 341 drawings, which I know is not correct.
That's not the right. Really?
Oh, I guess I found the right ones. So anyways, I hope you guys are seeing this. Yeah, I guess it worked itself out. It just didn't have connection to the database at first. So let me see if I can go back home. There we go. That's much better. 21,000. Yeah, I don't know what it didn't see there, but yeah. So about 21,000 drawings. This is the home page. There's a couple of pre-done searches down here that you can click on. Otherwise, does anyone have a suggestion for a search term? We're going to do this like an improv class. Anything? Nothing?
Equipment pad.
Equipment pad. Oh, 20 of 20. Dialysis equipment pad. Oh, exciting. Roof equipment support. Roof equipment support. There we go. So, I mean, okay, so that was a good one. Just to show you the functionality over here on the left-hand side, these are all the filters. Like I said, we have a bunch of different offices, which we call studios. So you can see which office it came from. If you know the project name, you can sort of see the project name. And then if you know, like I want a specific view scale, like, you know, you're looking for a 3-inch, or if you're looking for a particular view type, so drafting views, elevations, any of those sorts of things. So again, filtering over on the left-hand side, all of your search results in this main window. And then once you click on them, like Ethan was showing, this is sort of pops up. You can click on the window or on the image and it'll pop up so you can see it a little bit better. And then all of this information down here, most of it is like hover over to give you information, or click it to do something with it. Yeah, so this is all of the views in the project, all of the views on the sheet. Some of the projects have downloadable Revit content and some of them don't, depending on which version they were harvested with. So the more recent ones were the ones that we implemented the Revit stuff.
New York General project would have it. If you maybe you also search inside the New York General.
New York General.
Yeah. In the project name, I think.
Oh. Search.
In the project filter.
Project New York General. There we go. There we go. Okay, yeah. So this is download RVT file. I'm not sure what version this is. I think I have 2021 on my machine. So, but yeah, I'm not sure if I want to open this right now. But you can see it downloaded this RVT file. It's 752K. So yeah, it's just all of the detail items in any of the sort of graphic families that are needed, as well as the fill patterns and line patterns and all that sort of stuff. It's actually kind of nice having it come in as a separate file. We had talked for a little while about just having a like import into my Revit project button, but as some of you might know, like managing all of the family types, and you don't want to have duplicate line styles and fill patterns and all that sort of stuff. So it sort of works out, even though it's an intermediate step to have this export to a Revit file. It's kind of nice. You open that one up, you know, sort of clean up whatever you want to, merge all your view styles or whatnot, and then push it into your main project. And I know someone suggested on another call, there are some tools for doing like, you know, automatic duplication cleanup and that sort of stuff. But yeah, this is essentially, you know, how the site works. You have, I'm not sure if he's talked about collections yet, but yeah, one of the things that you can do right here, you know, you have a bunch of different collections, and if you hit this bookmark icon, I don't want to add it to trash, I want to add it to my new list. So yeah, I hit that button and now it's added to that list, and I can share that list with other people within the organization. So if I can set up a team, you know, I can set up collections for my team or for areas of the building or whatever. So yeah, I have, you know, detail packs of things that I've shared with other people. You know, we have this brick facade thing that we were working on. And so, like, you know, I was saying a bunch of details related to brick facades, and these are the 4 people that are working on that project with me. So there's a lot of, you know, sort of interoperability and sharing. And, you know, on the roadmap going forward are things like, you know, ratings, giving a thumb up and thumb down, adding comments to things, and that sort of like, you know, internal grading system is sort of what we're talking about. But there's already a lot of really good functionality. I think this is probably, I hope you're okay with me showing this, Ethan. Again, I'm not doing any of this. He's doing everything under data management. I now have access to all of my BIM 360 projects, and I can, I don't think I'm allowed to show you all of those projects, but I can go in there and I can select a Revit model, and there's an add button that pops up, and I can just hit add. So I don't even have to open it locally on my machine, as long as my BIM 360 has access to it. So that is one of the more exciting, and I think it's only been a couple of weeks since he's put that feature in. So it's, again, another one of the ones that I'm really excited about. All right, I think that's a very whirlwind tour through it. Again, if you have questions, we can, you know, we can get to them at the end. I see one in the chat. Does Artifact work with live section cuts or just drafting views? When it's harvesting, it harvests model views and drafting views. It harvests everything inside of the project. When you're bringing that back into your Revit project, obviously you can't sort of make a model cut and sort of assemble all of the things inside of your model. So it comes in as a drafting view when you import it into the new project, but it extracts all of the views, model views and drafting views from the original project when you harvest. So
any model elements that were included in the section cut, does it somehow convert those into like a filled region drafting?
I believe that's what
component?
happens. Ethan, do you know specifically how that conversion works? Like there is a graphic representation of all of the model elements. It's not like there's a blank there, like you're missing the document. It's visually there.
I think it's a visual there. What's been shown on artifact is just the image, so it does not involve the actual model. We're just showing how it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also, yes, we are trying to help you to reuse if it's drafting view. We are also thinking about to reuse, more complex views, but that was, far away on our horizon. Yeah, we are going to talk a little bit about the automation part that may be related.
All right, yeah. So I started opening up my Revit and that RVT file that I downloaded, so we can look at that maybe in a little bit. But I stopped sharing my screen. Ethan, if you want to share yours again and go through the rest of the automated documentation presentation. Oh, we're seeing the Rainbow Mountains again.
Okay, I'll switch off this one. Yeah, it's back again.
There we go.
Yeah. The only thing was the demo. I just would like to mention that for collection, we support downloaded in the as a sheet laid out on the multiple sheets with what was size 24 by 30. We can demo that later. So we've talked about the artifact. And next, I'm going to talk to you about our thinking about automation, or actually standardization of construction documentation using data harvest with the similar methods as what artifact is. Actually, we are doing all of those data harvesting with a modified version of artifact harvester as part of a research or study going on. So the thinking was, why do we focus on documentation? I feel like this is important to also talk about. Why do we focus on documentation? So Nick Cameron at Parkinson-Weil told us 40% of fee of the company, or actually profession, is for you to produce a set of construction documents. It is a bulk of the revenue, but it's also a lot of man hours for the business to operate. And also, this is the AU about 1 month ago. First, there are very few sessions related to documentation, and so few that this person say this in the channel that he said with over 65% of the production time on drawings, why do we see so few automation efforts on drawings? And I resonate with them. So our thinking is, we view all the decisions made through the design processes as a spectrum. On one end is design decisions, on the other end is documentation decisions. The design decisions, we know it's your value add, it's what's special about that building, but the documentation decisions are your legal binding documents. You have a liability as a practice, and also it is your deliverables, and the errors in them actually matter because the errors in construction documents has been the top one reason for construction dispute for many years. If we look closely at what those examples of those decisions, lay them out on the spectrum, we sort of see the type of tasks on the right-hand side as documentation decision. And the reason we see the process is slow or difficult, in our view, is that each time when design gets updated, the documentation needs time to catch up. It's not instant, so that design changes seems to be more volatile, more easy to decide to make a change. But documentation-wise, you cannot afford to make many rounds of iteration, and that effectively prevents you iterate on the design. And the fact that you're actually still doing this iteration, change your design, makes the practices to be to feel the pain of the drag of the documentation. So in our view, the profession needs a CD button where you want to really iterate on your design and press that button, at least largely by pressing that button, you get bulk of your documentation catch-up work done, syncing with your design. And that kind of task is what we think can be accomplished with data collected with tools like Artifact. And in the more popular term is called AI, but it's actually data-driven. We've seen a lot of innovations or startups working on making a design button for you, which we think, in our view, that's less of importance to the business. But for profession, what's more important is to have a CD button. So as I said, we want to use technology that we developed when we are making Artifact. It's actually an Artifact harvester with some tweaks. This is the first baby example, or say poster child example of a data-driven documentation decision. For example, here you see the design actually changed from a curved ceiling to a flat ceiling. But you know, the architecture designer who today will be drawing this crop manually with a thickened crop. This crop will not update automatically according to your design, right? So you change your design, but the documentation, that crop needs to catch up. And it is that catch up slows down your design. You cannot change your design many times and still expect documentation to be up to date or in sync with the design. So we instead build the technology to do this with one click of a button based on the data. So effectively, we have to build the eyes to basically read the geometry of every element inside this view, this interior elevation. And also we have to build the action, like the hands of the architect, that being able to create. Here is a field region, because that's what people been using, and people tell us they use field region. And also, this data has been sent to the backend, computed with the algorithms that's driven by data, and so how you should be drawing that that enclosure or the outline. It may sound simple, but it's not that simple, because not every of those outlines closed. For example, like here, how do you know at this location you need to trace up rather than goes horizontally? This is we can only make a good decision by looking at how architects really has been doing this in each of the situation. So sort of we would collect how actual architects are doing it, and in a similar situation, then we go back to check how people are doing it and then implement it here. It's not a simple problem, and it's actually a often asked feature. So this is actually pulled down in 2004. So it is a feature request turning 16. That in 2004, over 90% of puller answered with, yes, they want to see this in the next release of Revit. But that didn't happen. Over the years, we hear BIM managers been telling us continuously that this is a huge time waster. Gradually, people seems to be accustomed to the situation and tolerate with the current status quo. Fewer and fewer people were asking for this, but a few people still try. So Eric Lavelle was one of the BIM managers still asking similar related question on the Autodesk forum. And once we have this initial version ready, we reached out to him, and he really nicely tested and gave feedback. We iterated around, and then finally, his firm, Bassetti Architects, finally become one of our earliest customer using this interior elevation. Today, this tool is being utilized. Most of the customers in the Seattle, Portland area cutting the interior elevation for the architects over there. In the more optimistic estimation, conservative estimation, I would say, for every 500 square feet of the building, you would have one of those interior elevation on average. So if you are building 1 million square feet, you would have 2,000 of those interior elevation. Remember, each time you design change, the code documentation needs to catch up. So yes, I think to us, Revit is trying to do such job, but it didn't carry it to the end of it. So people still need to do the manual work. And here is our friend at ZGF testing it with interior elevation with curved in-place family. So on the right-hand side is a press that button without a crop. It takes about 3 seconds. And on the left-hand side is drawing it manually. You need to pick the lines and connect them. And if you try to finish very often, the lines are not perfectly aligned, the Revit's going to complain about errors, and then you got to fix them one by one. And when you're lucky, you are sort of after fix everything, and Revit accept your outline. I myself would never capable to accomplish the outline for the interior elevation to a left-hand side, and this is actually my wife and is using the model to make this video. And this assumes the person starts to draw right away without any thinking, right? In reality, that's not true. So it's always going to take longer. According to our users, even for very simple boxed outline, this tool saved them 2 to 4 minutes. And also we developed technology. Earlier, we developed technology to highlight the edges and faces that are not dimensioned. Trying to help you to do this dimension one thing at one place for only one time kind of task. But we quickly discovered in the completed construction drawing set, not everything is dimensioned. So we would this tool tend to highlight too many. So it becomes a question that can only be answered with data. That is to say, we need to have technology like Artifact and tweak it so that it reads all the dimensions inside your finished construction document and see how dimensions were done. For example, what elements needs to be dimensioned, right? And what does not need to be dimensioned. And if it's dimensioned, from where to where, usually dimension was to locate one thing based on location of another thing. And one thing is using as a basis for another. And this relationship perhaps composed a network or a graph. And how can we capture, without capturing that data, it's impossible for tools like this to be useful. So we sort of, we built this front end that was capable to turn off highlights, but we are lacking the sort of the brain part where the code was not smart enough to know how do people want dimension to be done. So we are, this is one of the study projects, research project ongoing internally. We are trying to, in collaboration with Perkins and Well, to see how people have been doing dimension in the construction drawing set. Okay, so in the end, we want to build this CD button for the industry where if you push that CD button and sort of your documentation largely gets synced with your model. And that perhaps will take some of the efforts I'm going to mention here. For example, this is a what section study. It's just study, it's not product, but we hopefully, if we solve the problem, it can become a product. Here we are reading every what section inside the construction drawing set, completed one, and visualizing it in 3D. And from this, we can sort of know in the whole drawing set, which section, what sections actually you need to document this building. And we collect which element is being cut by this section. And then and Luke actually said this, if we have some data, completed construction document set with this type of data reading out by artifact type of technology, we can perhaps ask the machine that do we have all the section cuts I need to explain the building? And if we are looking for one model element, for example, like this wall particularly, perhaps we can ask, oh, if we take, is this element, yes, it appears in this wall section. Which other section of use does this wall also appear? So is that particular view a redundant version that I may not need to cut? So for those questions, at the beginning, if we are gathering those data for an ongoing project, perhaps we can form a more precise measurement of a development process of the documentation, at least at the element level. So imagine you can replace what section, quote unquote, what section here with, let's say, in logic plan. Do we want to know how many in logic plan we need and where do we need them? Let's say maybe replace this with callouts, details, or interior elevations, right? So in the drawing set, where do I need to put the wall sections? Where do I need to put interior elevations? Where do I need to call out? Where do I need to create, enlarge the floor plan? All of those constitutes a logistic of the drawing, how to put the drawings together. Today, architects is doing this job with what they call cartooning process. It's a process they plan what needs to be done as a drawing set, right? It's also part of the institutional knowledge that currently resides in one of your project architect's head, and you need him to sit there and performing to construct this sort of initial pass of what is needed in a set. Perhaps if we have the logics of the drawing set, maybe we can let the algorithm, the computer, to take the first pass and sort of give you something more than a template, a Revit template would give you, right? And then we sort of get a guarantee of the correctness, of consistency that the algorithm would embody. And then you could, human design, you could go in to tweak things and do those details. Putting those details together has always been a design problem that probably hardly automatable. And that's what, according to me, is where the architecture begins, right? Okay, so the whole effort here is what we want to build, the understanding of the documentation, especially the documentation decisions will be made again and again in different projects. And by doing that, maybe as a profession, we can move away from arbitrary deadlines. The arbitrary deadline where you stamp a tag that says this is 50% of CD done, but without any data back it up. You know, it's a gut feeling. It's by experience. That's not written out anywhere. It's sitting in someone's head with the estimation this is 50%, and maybe that is 90%. If the estimation is very arbitrary, maybe you would sleep work and push every work to the end of the deadline, just right before deadline. Maybe before you deliver that documentation, you have to do a lot of work which needs to be done, you know, at 50% DCD. So overall, we think with more data like this, perhaps we can have a better picture of the progress of the projects and maybe the logistic of how a drawing set is composed. And this is how we're going to do it. It's just we can skip this, and that's conclude our presentation. I think we're on time. Look, so
yeah. If you have any questions, there were a few that came through in the chat that I tried to answer as they came in. Yeah, I did manage to get that file open, and it looks like the model elements get converted to filled regions using whatever the sort of section cut material is. And then I saw Bethany. I don't think right now, Ethan, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it works for a heavy outline around the outside. I assume you're talking like the sort of edge geometry, of the detail.
For interior elevations, just kind of flipping it the other way and doing it as a bold outline for.
I think my guess is you could. I hadn't thought about that before, but that's a good idea, and I think probably 95% of the code is already written.
Sorry.
Yeah,
What?
so it's an architectural convention. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but sort of the silhouette of an object in space, normally it has like a hard outline to it to sort of visually define that edge, which looks very similar to the way that you've done the auto crop on the interior elevation. So yeah, it seems like an interesting idea if you could sort of flip it inside out and have it achieve that sort of exterior outline as well. That might be interesting to do.
Yeah, we've heard people ask us, can we do exterior outlines?
Okay.
Apparently people are still doing it. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't tried. What needs to be say is the interior elevation tool. It works most of the time because it doesn't work 100% of time. Because as I said, there are times that the interior elevation are not closed, and those are the place where you need data to do it well. So it handles reasonable case well enough that for 80, actually more than 90 cases, it works well. And our most attention now here is to convert this algorithm into complete data-driven, so that as we are reading through more existing projects, past projects, we actually learn how people do it when the interior elevation are not closed. So unless we are reaching near 100% correct success rate, we are not yet looking at the exterior outline. But that's very interesting thing to ask about. But again, interior elevations come in large number in the project. People we feel much more pain over there from our users, and that's something, right? Your design change, and then you need to catch up with, and each building comes in tens or hundreds of them. We've been hearing that over the years, so that has been actually most of our attention last year was in there, but this year was mostly the artifact, because we feel like we find out we need data to teach the algorithm, so we do need to do the data part of the work.
So one other question came in: for artifact to search through past projects, do they need to be saved in a particular folder architecture? No, it basically just relies on the internal linking structure within Revit. So if you have a master model and you have a bunch of linked models, you just have to open the master model and hit harvest, or open it on BIM 360 and hit harvest. As long as those inside of the master model are all linked and passed correctly to each other from wherever you open it, it should work just fine.
You mentioned that in other presentations, people have mentioned some tools for automatic cleanup of duplicate elements, or I'm assuming duplicate lines. What are those tools?
We were talking with another Revit user group, I think that was sponsored by ImagineIt, and I don't remember exactly which plugin it was to do the deduplication. Do you remember which one that was, Ethan?
Okay. So when you
Style Manager, Style Cleaner?
Is it Ideate?
Ideate. ImagineIt. Yes, what is ImagineIt? Ideate. Is that one of their products? Sorry.
Well, they're separate. ImagineIt is a reseller. They are our sponsor as well. And they make
Ideate, right.
ImagineIt does have a utility that's an add-on. But then Ideate has a style manager.
I remember somebody mentioned
I
style.
might have conflated the two of them.
But mostly when we are hearing the worry that when you sort of start to reuse stuff from old projects, and then when you bring into your current projects, the most often solution people tend to mention that may cope with the problem was I think it's a company called Guardian. I think Guardian was one thing that can clean up, sort of maintain your Revit accountants' family's cleanness. But that's something that people have mentioned to us. I don't have experience with Guardian, but just passing on the names.
Yeah, that was what I was wondering. Thank you.
I think you're right. I think it was Style Manager. I think that was the one that they mentioned. But I don't have personal experience with that one.
Someone mentioned in the chat. I never got a look at it. Okay, so other comments? Solves problem. Yeah, okay, so Lucas answered it.
Yeah, I think I got most of the ones that were in the chat. Any other questions?
So is this all through BIM 360, or it can not? You just publish it to the database with even conventional, like Revit Central models. Is that correct?
You could do it either way. So if you have, just sort of a project model saved on your server or on your local machine, you can just open it in your local copy of Revit, and it exists as a Revit plugin. And you just, it just has its own spot in the tabs, and you hit a button and it sends it to the server. The other way to do it is to log into the Artifact website, and that is actually linked to my Autodesk account, and so it knows what projects I have up on BIM 360. Since they're both on the cloud, they can talk to one another. So yeah, those are sort of the two options, and you can use either one. They work, as far as I know, exactly the same way. It's just a matter of where you have your project files saved on, sort of your server, your local server, or up on the BIM 360 cloud server.
Okay, one more follow-up question. You were showing like the different offices, like who does the initial setup and creates those sort of filters?
So that one is actually, so the way that we number we have project numbers, and we have a 2-digit code for each office. So he just, sort of scrapes the project number, and we have a lookup table for assigning it a particular value inside of the database. So that's just our own particular, sort of nomenclature. So yeah, you would have to, sort of work out whatever your system is if you wanted to sort of categorize them that way. But that's how we automated it.
Well, yeah, for every project that's being indexed, the artifact provides the capability for you to edit the project info only in this database. It's not synced to Revit, but you can sort of edit the project info so that you can code it in a way, and then perhaps much easier. You don't have to really modify your project before you harvest them. So you can edit it according to a particular coding, and then using yes, perhaps I need to do a little bit of the development to map the code into the office numbers. But usually that tends to be a typical requirement for a large customer, right, with many offices, which warrants extra development that we can do. Well, yes. Yeah, if we don't have more questions, I would also like to mention this, although Luke is here. The way we thought this is for smaller firms to compete with larger firms is to, if you think of the details like if it's a cost, if you think of it more like a cost rather than your strengths, then between smaller firms, do you may consider, or maybe you can consider the possibility of sharing those details? If you do that, then as a community of the firms or smaller practitioners, you would have a common accessible set of those detailed solutions. It's not unlike what the open source software developer has been doing. They've been sharing some codes or projects together, with sufficient of disclaimer, of course. But then they sort of turn this base block of the software development from a cost that everybody has to pay to be something maintained by the whole community or profession. Yes, then maybe if you focus more on the more client-facing side of the things, but having the cost bear by the whole community, then maybe as a small practitioner you can move faster. At least that's what I know. Software development finally goes towards. Obviously, it's not everything is rosy looking. That means you are not get compensated by the detailed work that you do. But perhaps everyone can work less on this aspect. but putting more attention to what your customer wants. Maybe they don't care about the detail to be very standardized, right? Maybe they care about some other aspect of the work that you could now put more time on. If you can spend less time in this as a profession, if it's standardized, why work out every time, again, right? So that's what I'm going to mention. And also, if you buy the argument or would like to look at architectural design as if you are writing software, then you can rest assured that your job is never going to be taken away, because even today, software were written manually by software engineers. Because software, if you are always taking more or less standardized block and putting them together, that act do require humans to write code or say do the design as a detailed drawings, you putting elements together. That part of work, even in the software side, is not automated. People still writing code manually today. So, and that's the message I want to tell you is, as a designer, your job is always going to be there, but perhaps finding a better way for you, for the profession to work, was to perhaps to find a way to use. I understand the content that you produced with the current Beam software, Revit, etc., may not be very easy to reuse. But here we see drafting view, perhaps it's not that difficult. But once you get higher up into the model elements, maybe there will be difficulty. But those are the parts that please do not stop thinking about how to reuse them. I understand that there will be, inevitably, there will be headaches accompanying with those efforts. But if you think you are writing software, for example, eventually those are the problems that the profession is going to be sorted out. And then everything in the documentation side will become easier if we, as a whole, tackle those challenges. That's all the major messages I want to deliver. I welcome any of you if you have anything to tell us, want to collaborate. I was seeing here, Robert, your message. I'm going to copy this down and get in contact with you. Thanks. Yeah, so that pretty much is all the message I have with you. Well, it's from a software engineer's point of view. I don't want to come across as being arrogant. I do not understand a lot of things in the AEC design space and construction. So I was forever in the process of learning. I'm very grateful to have this chance to talk to this great community here in Charlottesville. And thanks, Bethany, for organizing this and it's essentially serve as a platform, for anyone who wants to develop, tools that this perhaps will be the first stop that we need to get in touch with our users, or anyone who might be interested to use that technology. Thank you.
So if we want to get in touch with you, we can. I see Luke put in the chat. So that's great.
Yeah, that's our website, and if click on it, you can get in contact with us somewhere like in the bottom of the webpage. And you can search my name on LinkedIn. I'm always there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm going to stop recording.